Hi guys, let's do a small video about something called absolute pressure, gauge pressure and vacuum pressure, and we will also talk a little about what is a compound gauge and how to read it, how to read a compound gauge, right? Because many a times I've seen that people get confused by seeing a compound gauge. They do not know how to read it. So let's talk about the pressures and then we will talk about the compound gauge. First thing is absolute pressure. What is absolute pressure? Absolute pressure occurs when the air is completely absent. That means in vacuum, right? Absolute pressure is measured with the reference being vacuum. When we take vacuum as reference and then we measure some pressure, that is known as absolute pressure, and this pressure never changes. It will not fluctuate regardless of what is your atmospheric pressure or what is your elevation or what is your altitude, nothing. It will be same. Whereas when we talk of gauge pressure is the pressure measured with reference to the atmospheric pressure. Now since we know that atmospheric pressure changes with height, so this gauge pressure can change. So for the same equipment, the gauge pressure can be different at different places, right? But for all practical purposes, this is more than enough for our daily use, right? Now, if there is a pressure which is less than atmospheric pressure, that is known as the vacuum pressure. So this is the vacuum line, this is the atmospheric pressure line. Anything which is measured with reference to vacuum is absolute pressure, which is measured with reference to atmospheric pressure or barometric pressure is gauge pressure, and any pressure which is negative, which is less than atmospheric pressure, is known as vacuum pressure. At sea level, this barometric pressure is 30 inches of mercury or 14.7 pounds per square inch, right? So this is how it is. Now a compound gauge. I'm talking about a compound gauge. A compound gauge is a gauge which can measure both the positive pressure and the negative pressure. Normally we have the gauges which are measuring only positive or only negative, like in the freshwater generator. But there are places where we need a gauge which can measure both positive and negative pressure. For example, AC system and reefer system. So there we have a compound gauge. A compound gauge, what happens with compound gauges? Compound gauge, let's say it's 0 here. When it goes down, it is showing mm of Hg, mm of mercury, right? And when it goes clockwise direction, it is showing psi. So if my pointer is working clockwise from 0, it is showing me positive pressure and gauge pressure, and if it is going negative, it is showing negative pressure, that is vacuum. So there is nothing to be confused about this. This is very simple. But just remember, if it is going clockwise, it is showing pounds per square inch, and if it is going minus, if it is going counterclockwise, it is showing Hg. It is showing vacuum. So that is it. What we can do is, let's go to engine room and see this pressure gauge practically and see if we can figure it out. So okay guys, this is a compound pressure gauge on an AC system. Now this is a very unique kind of a pressure gauge. The thing is, it is a compound pressure gauge but of different kinds, wherein we are measuring two things. We are measuring the discharge pressure of the refrigerant, and also at the same time we are measuring the oil pressure. So you see this center gauge, this one, the small one, this is showing oil pressure as of now, which is somewhere around 3.8, right? And this next gauge is this black one, which is going from here 0 to 4, 6, 8. This is showing our refrigerant suction pressure. which is as of now somewhere around 5.2. So, the great thing about this is that this pointer is controlled by the pressure from the refrigerant, whereas this center dial, which shows the oil pressure, this moves according to the oil pressure. So suppose if the oil pressure is 2, it will rotate more so that this 2 coincides with this pointer, and once it is stopped, this pointer will come down and this will go down like this. So as you can see, there are 2 inputs coming into this pressure gauge. See, this one and this one. One is coming from this gauge, which is oil pressure, which is connected to oil pressure, and this is connected to the suction side of the compressor. So it has got 2 inputs, 1 and 2, and it is controlling 2 things. One pressure is controlling the pointer and one pressure is controlling this inner dial, which rotates, and we can measure 2 things. Also, the thing we talked about being vacuum, you can see this is 0 and we have 1 here also. So if it goes into minus, the pointer will go all the way down here and it will show minus. So that is how a compound gauge works. I hope you can retain some of it, and please leave comments and tell me what more I can do or what I can do more to help you out. Thank you so much.